Haslinger is a strength and conditioning graduate assistant coach at Weber International University. He currently designs and implements programs for Weber's men's and women's golf, baseball, and cross-country programs. Coach Haslinger is a graduate of Florida Gulf Coast University with a BS in exercise science. He has completed internships with FGCU, the Boston Red Sox, and the University of Kentucky prior to coming to Weber. Coach Haslinger also serves on the NHSSCA Florida Advisory Board and the NSCA Weightlifting SIG Committee. He is certified through the NSCA as a Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, and he's here to present to you on creating context. So without further ado, Coach Taylor Haslinger.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, good morning. Hope you all had safe travels. Like he said, my name is Taylor Haslinger. I'm a graduate assistant on the staff here, and we'll get started with the presentation. So, sir, first off, thank you to Weber International University, our athletic director Darren Ritchie, Coach Steve Rasm, Coach Tyler Ayers, very influential in my life. Similar to everyone in here, we all who our mentors are, and I got to start with our thank yous to that. Weber strength staff, our team in the room, constantly push each other. And these four people are primarily where a lot of the work comes from this morning's presentation. So it's almost like a synopsis or a large summary of these four people's work. As iron sharpens iron, right on the back of my guy's Ryan's shirt, one person sharpens another. Everyone's in here like-minded. We're all in here for the right reasons, I believe, and we're all very similar individuals. And without each other pushing each other, we won't become any better. Thank you to all sitting in the room. This is an investment of our time. We just got to talk about the 4-hour work week. Right? Time is valuable. There's a sense of urgency in everything we do, and it means a lot to our staff for you to be here this morning. So quick, who am I? Like Coach Ayers just said, Florida Gulf Coast University undergrad, Boston Red Sox through spring training in the University of Kentucky, and here I am now finishing up 2 years in this coming July with my MBA in sports management. Other important things to myself are the memories I built along the way. These are moments in life that I'll probably always remember. Early on internships, the friendships and relationships, just like I'm starting to build with people in this crowd over 2 years, probably the most important things as well as family. These are not my children, just my 2 nieces and 1 nephew, but just like all of us in the room, keep what's important, the most important thing. So kind of tying in my experiences and why I want to speak on creating context. So again, with the Boston Red Sox organization, I was in a room once with 50 professional athletes. Granted, they were 18 to 22 years old, all from the Dominican Republic, and maybe 5 of them spoke English as their second language. Right? So the art of communication, whether it's through tactile cues, movement cues, or how you even say words in Spanish, became very important very fast. And so this was me during that spring training from January to May. And you kind of have to adapt or you can't get the job done. So that's why this context and presentation kind of is important to me. Quick overview slide. We're going to go through the science and first some art. Go over some trust tenets by Brett Bartholomew of how to kind of relate and create some more trust with our athletes or clients. Why words matter. Some research on motor skill development. And then some practical application with some coaching cue examples that might enhance your program. So what's our mission here at Weber International University and our athletic department? Create a more bulletproof athlete, as injury resilient as they can be. Right? Also character development. Everyone in this room is a leader in some capacity, whether they think it or not. Everyone has influence on other people, especially in a field where you can put your hands on someone. Your words mean a little more to people. We're all leaders. And most importantly as well, human performance. So just like this skill is also an art, we'll get into this shortly. So science versus the art. Similar to a few of us just getting out of undergrad or still going through undergrad, you get hit with a lot of books, a lot of information, as well as the practical application side. There's a blend of science versus art. And when we talk about the science, there's a lot of quick things that might come to your head. Like the Atlas of Anatomy, your basic X's and O's. Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research. Super training, maybe something a little more specific to human performance. The science and practice of strength training, highly recommend. And then maybe the essentials, if you're looking towards your CSCS. Right, some quick things come to your head, maybe a good podcast on leadership. Versus the art. Right, not many quick things came to your mind, maybe perhaps. Maybe Brett Bartholomew's new book, but not many quite as actual textbook resources in my mind come to mind right off the tip of my tongue. So the question is, what are you doing beyond just X's and O's to enhance your program or your training sessions with your clients? So some trust tenets. Everyone here has a perception, right? Whether this is the reality of who we are, you're perceiving me of what I'm dressed, the way I stand, the way I speak, for the letters behind my name, for whatever that is worth. Just similar to our student athletes, they have a perception of who we are. For example, we have a large staff turnover this year at Weber International University. We have our baseball team currently has gone through 3 strength coaches in the last 8 months. Granted, we were all here and working together, but we're all 3 different individuals. Whether by the way we talk to them, the way we program certain exercises, they all have a perception of who we are, right? And how can we create a reality of what is important to myself, to them? They see us all in different lights, and what should they take for us at face value? So we're going to get into the 3 R's and how to build some trust tenets. So begin to ask open-minded questions. Right, this is kind of going into reflectively listen to understand what matters to them. We start by doing our research. So here at Weber International University, we have the opportunity to be very one-on-one with 1 or 2 teams. Sometimes it's one team with only 15 student athletes, and it gives us an opportunity to do a lot of research, whether it's on a bus ride, whether it's in the CAF, because some of us live here. Right, we go break down the session, we go to the CAF, we have lunch with them sometimes. There's a lot of different opportunities to do your research. Next, create a shared perspective. Some of us in the room probably played some type of sport growing up, whether it's in high school, collegiate, professional, but not many of us played every sport under the umbrella. Right, we have to work with different athletes from different sports. How can we create a shared perspective and be able to relate to them? Are you able to talk the lingo? Are you able to understand dimensions of the field? Can you talk anything about maybe another level of their sport? Right, how can you relate to someone who's maybe a different demographic, a different sex, a sport that you've never even played before or tried it at all? So learn how to relate. And now that we've researched and related, take a core concept and break it down. This is kind of a synopsis of the message today, is reframe. Be able to reframe the message of whatever that is to you. Research, relate, and reframe. We'll get into this a little bit more throughout the presentation on our cues and more of our external focus. So changing gears here, lessons in inflection. So now that we've kind of done our subjective side of all the art of coaching, we're going to get into some more tactile and systematic approaches to coaching. So inflection, a change in the form of a word to express a grammatical function or attribute. So similar to my experiences, communication has different meanings. So Coach Raz spoke on this during his Art of Coaching probably about 2 years ago. It's on our Weber Strength Staff YouTube channel, and how this sentence can have a lot of different meanings just by the way you enunciate certain words. I never said she stole the money, or my money, meaning I never said it. Might have been someone else, but I never said she stole my money. I never said she stole my money, meaning it never occurred. Or I never said she stole my money, meaning it may have been another form of communication. Right, so it's less about what is said and more about what is heard, is what Dr. Nick Lukeman states in one of his presentations. And this is why words matter. So most of us, whatever our role is in the room, would be a teacher. Right? Some of us really are teachers and professors back there in the room. But what do we teach? Movement, skill, exercises, a lot of different varieties. But in order for us to teach, one must inherently learn. Right? We can talk about presentations, we can talk about concepts, we can give them all the information we have, right, going back to the science, but if they're unable to learn the concept or apply it immediately, have we actually really done our job? So here's Coach Connor Derrickson. He's no longer with us right now. He's in the minor league system with the Minnesota Twins. But here he is with 50 baseball players in a morning session, and he's going over the logistics of the training session, whether it's the exercises, whether it's how he wants people placed. We've all kind of been in this scenario where we're talking to either one-on-one or a large group of people, and you're trying to get the message across. And sometimes you get this blank stare. And after you get a great synopsis, what do you want me to do? Right? Well, okay, we'll say it again, we'll try it again. Maybe it's this blank stare when you're coaching up an Olympic lift, or maybe sprint mechanics, something that happens fast, something that's multi-jointed complex. Right? So how can we reduce this amount of faces and be that aha moment? Right? Create the light bulb. That's a somewhat of a small summary of what this presentation is limiting the confused looks and creating more light bulb moments as fast as we can. So short versus long-term memory. The short-term memory can hold about 5 items plus or minus 3. So when you think of cell phone numbers, 10 total digits, but in groups of 3. Versus our long-term memory, which is tied in the back of our mind forever. Whether it was a good experience, you got married, whether it was a poor experience, the death of a loved one, or because of long-term retention because of the repeated applicable skills, such as Olympic weightlifting, such as doing a sports skill that you've done over and over and over again. So there is the short versus long-term memory available to us. So understanding that, what is most valuable to them being our student, athletes, or client right now? Whether it's the training session, whether it's a concept, probably safety. Maybe it's move the bar fast. Maybe it's the tempo of the lift. We need to be in and out because of time constraints. So there's a maximum capacity of what you can give to them in the short term. Right? Long term, hopefully they develop skills of knowing the tempo well, knowing the exercises very well, but there's a short term capacity of what they need to know right now. So going into some definitions here, attentional focus, the conscious effort of an individual to focus their attention through explicit thoughts in an effort to execute a motor skill with superior performance. So this is very intentional. What are you actually thinking of when performing, throwing a baseball, throwing a softball, swinging the bat, swinging the club, performing the hang clean, performing the snatch? What is your conscious effort? Where is it? Intentional focus. Remember that. We're going to go over internal and external shortly. So here at Weber International, we have 5 components of a dynamic warm-up. One is a focus component. So something just as simple as, is it on the whistle or the voice? Is it getting directionally set up in an exercise? Something simple to start attaining that focus, because we all understand how hard it is to shut down other aspects of our life. Just like the 4-hour work week, how can we go from Coach Taylor to another aspect of my life? By attaining that focus for me. So performance in terms of motor skill learning refers to the temporary fluctuations in motor skill behavior that can be observed or immediately after the skill acquisition process. So that acute change you can have, right? We're coaching up an exercise, you give them the cue, whatever that may be, and they make the adjustment, right? We've seen that kind of happen over time, and now, versus learning, refers to the relatively permanent changes in motor skill behavior that support long-term retention and transfer. So you can fix the exercise, they understand it for the day, but they come back in 7 days and do it again. Right? Can you see that long-term retention over and over again? Or are we stuck spinning our wheels week after week because they can't understand a certain cue or a certain exercise, but it's not their fault? So internal cues or internal focus is more towards the body or more internally based, while external cues or external focus is more outcome or movement based. We'll go into some prime examples later throughout this presentation. That's important to know internal versus external focus. An internal focus tends to constrain the motor system. This is something called the constrained action hypothesis. It's almost like putting handcuffs on the brain where you're overthinking. In this research here later in the PDF or resources, you'll see they talk about the yips, almost where someone can't get out of their own head. Whereas an external focus promotes more automatic movement control. They use the example when you're driving home the same way every single day, and you blank out for those 3 minutes, you're like, what just happened on the road? Because it's that automatic response almost in that long-term memory. So an internal focus tends to constrain the motor system, while an external focus over time promotes more automatic movement. So now we're going to go into some research over some horizontal broad jumping, some sprinting of what external focus and external cues can do potentially for your program. So there's 38 Division I college athletes. They did 2 standing broad jumps with 4 different sets of cues. So there's 8 total different jumps. Here's a description of it. They start at the line and jump as far as horizontally as they can. And here were the results. So we had a control group, which was given no focus, just jump as you would. An internal focus, so something primarily towards the body. An external focus, which is close, and an external focus, which is far. We'll get into the differences between these 2 focuses in a brief moment. But this one seemed to be the greatest in its results. We'll go over why shortly. So more along that lines, external cues have been found to elicit faster total sprint times and reaction times. So we had 8 international sprinters here. You could say elite in some capacity. 8 basketball and football players, I think they were collegiate. And they did 3 10-meter sprints in each condition. So just similar to the last study, we had an external, an internal, and a control group. And across the line, we saw experts and novices predominantly show better results with an external focus, predominantly. Also, external focus conditions created a significantly faster 20-meter sprint time, this time in novices. So not only experts but also novices. 84 undergraduate students with no prior track experience. 3 20-meter sprints in each condition. Right, control, internal, external, again, showing the best time in seconds, no matter what type of experience they have, whether they're an elite sprinter or an undergraduate. Predominantly, external focus showed the best results. So when participants do not receive intentional focus instruction, their performance is typically similar to internal focus conditions. Right, that's kind of interesting. If you had an elite, by our world standards, sprinter, and you told them just to sprint, and the results are still less than an external focus, then what is their optimal focus actually being coached by? Or what is their actual thought process without it? It seems to be suboptimal. So along the lines of a novice, learner, skilled, advanced, or expert, take the research and apply it to your setting for what it is. We have a lot of skilled athletes here at Weber International. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, though, compared to professional baseball, they're not really experts, they might be novices. So understand that when you're reading the research and giving yourself context. So now we're going to go into some coaching cues, and we're going to go into a little bit of the prime practical application and examples that are available to you. So here's our instructional framework, kind of from the top down. We're going to go over some external cues, we'll show you some internal as well. We're going to primarily look here at the beginning of acceleration, the acceleration phase of sprinting. We're going to look at our 3 Ds now. So we had 3 Rs, here's our 3 Ds. Distance, direction, and description. So, distance. Here's an internal cue. Focus on extending your hip, knee, and ankle as you bring your leg backwards. So extending the hip, knee, and ankle, an internal cue, primarily towards the body. An external close. So going back to that one, the first research study picture I showed, an external close. Push the ground back with as much force as possible. Versus external far. Push past the timing gates as fast as possible. All seem fairly similar on what you want as the end goal as far as sprinting as fast as you can, but this cue seems to be the most effective. And you'll be getting all these slides in a PDF format at the very end as well throughout the day, so if you feel like you're in a rush to write something down, just let us know, we'll get you that information at the very end as well. So now that we have distance covered, we'll go over direction. So an internal cue, focus on a neutral spine while you sprint forward. External, away. Get long rapidly as you drive away from the start line, away from the start line. So again, going back to that attentional focus, what are you actually thinking of? External towards. Get long as you drive towards the cone. So very similar to the last view, but again, this cue, seems to be the most effective at producing performance. And description. So here we have another internal cue, same as front side acceleration mechanics here. Focus on flexing your hip, knee, and ankle as you bring your leg forward. An action verb, so a little different now. Hammer the ground back as hard as and fast as you can. So again, going back to inflection, the emphasis you put on certain words can also change the cue. Right? Push versus punch can have very different meanings on how you also say them. And then most importantly, here we go, analogies. Explode like a jet, taking off from an aircraft carrier. We're going to go down analogies here, but remember this cue right here. Explode like a jet, taking off from an aircraft carrier. So external cues, we're going to look at some more now, but primarily geared towards Olympic lifting. Again, kind of similar to acceleration, fast, multi-joint lifts, very difficult to coach sometimes. Going over the description phase. So the first pull, we'll go with a hang or a clean from the floor. Imagine that in your heads. Internal cue, push your knees back to get the knees out of the way for the barbell to move forward or vertically. Internal cue. Versus analogy, move smooth like clearing the road. Right? Very different concept, but again, outcome based versus internally based. Move smooth like clearing the road. Move smooth like clearing the road. Second pull, internal. Extend your hips forward. Some people might say open the hips forward. Again, geared toward the body. Seems appropriate. But how about push the ground away like a rocket? In this specific exercise, we want a very vertical displacement of the barbell and force. The rocket goes straight up. Push the ground away. Pushing the ground because it's slightly has a more longer ground contact time versus punching. The catch position. This one's just kind of funny. Keep your elbows high while flexing the hip, knees, and ankles. Right? It's just a mouthful, first of all. Seems appropriate though, right? If we're talking on our lingo, again, going back to the science of what we all understand. An analogy, jump straight down like musical chairs. Right? We'll get as to why this may or may not work. Again, creating context, if they never played in the game musical chairs, this probably is a useless cue. So analogies, they kind of have descriptive phases as well. Going understanding someone's culture, their generation, the motivation behind them, going back to our 3 R's, the habits and hobbies, and the personality. So culture, going back, are they from the Dominican Republic? Are they from Great Britain? Are they an international team? The generation, going into one of the presentations I watched, doing some research on this, he was talking to a young athlete and said, the hay isn't in the barn. And they gave him that blank stare, that what face? He said, the app isn't downloading yet. And they had a ha-ha moment. Right? So understanding the generation you're working with. Is it a young student athlete? Was it an older professional athlete? The motivation, habits, and hobbies, and personality kind of go back into our 3 R's of getting to know who they are and kind of what gets them to tick. Time and speed component. Force and strength, geometry and shape, and direction and space. So similar to like a rocket, there's a time and a speed component. How much force and strength is applied, direction and space, and the geometry. So, accelerate like a rocket on takeoff. It's a fast action movement. The jet doesn't take off slow. The force is applied rapidly over a short amount of time. It's a long and strong movement. And it's forward based. It's not vertically, it's not side to side, it's not backwards, it's not down. It's similar to what you would want in sprinting. So this cue would hit all 4 right on the dot. So be able to bridge the familiar to the unfamiliar. Similar to like I just said, if they've never played musical chairs, they've never played that game, there's no frame of reference. So it's kind of like they have to be understanding what the like is, or what the previous word, or the synonym, or the metaphor, or the simile you'd like to. Be a great storyteller. So right here you kind of think of what we kind of grow up in our interactions and kind of how we changed in life now with technology. Be a great storyteller. Be able to connect the dots from what they have known, what they do know, by doing your research, relating and reframing the message, and put it into the 3Ds in an effective manner. So here's our take-home points. Reevaluate your coaching cues. So begin to think of a lift. We all go over a lift as a staff. Sometimes we come together before and think this is how we want things to be ran. This lift should be done here. People are going to go outside for the med ball toss. Logistics. Just like logistics, we understand what exercises are going to be performed. If we're doing our jobs correctly, we understand what mistakes to anticipate. So if we understand where they're going, where they're coming, we can have a better idea of what cues to use. Begin to reword instructions to direct attention to the outcome and away from body movements. This has a little asterisk next to it because there is a time and place for internal cues. Think of like a single leg glute bridge or some small multi-joint or single joint movements. They might be more appropriate for an internal cue. But as the research has shown, over broad jumps and sprinting, those fast action multi-joint lifts, external cues might be the best appropriate. To optimize motor skill performance, utilize cues that adopt an external focus. Again, going versus learning versus performance, external cues have shown that learning and that long-term retention is gathered more through external focus. So similar to this, Vernon Griffith says, praise the effort, not the results. Dr. Angela Duckworth and Carol Dweck from Stanford University talk about the growth mindset and that every skill we teach is learnable. Going back, if we teach, they must learn. And that grit, or the ability to give great effort, keeps that going. Final thoughts here. You haven't taught until they've learned. This quote is by John Wooden. Utilizing, creating content, giving them a frame of reference from what we need to accomplish. And hopefully after all of this, you have a better idea of creating context. Thank you.